Hi, everybody. This is Carol from the STS. This is the user group call for adult cardiac. Today's date is February 17th, and on the phone with me from STS, I have Leanne Jones and Melinda, our STS consultant. And from IQVIA, we have the A team. We have Melanie, Joe, Jean, and Rhonda. So we will get started here if my mouse wants to work. Just quick STS updates, IQVIA updates, and then the user group calls are mainly focused on your feedback. So please use the Q&A function to submit your questions, and we'll get to them momentarily after we do our presentations. Important dates, and I want to point out that I added some TVT stuff on here because I think we have a good overlap between sites, and I thought this is a great platform to bring this up, just to give you a heads up about what's coming and what the plans are. I'm not sure. I haven't seen much communication come out on the NCDR side on this, so I thought I'd just jump into with this. So February 17th, that's today. The opt-out for Harvest 1 ends today at 11:59 p.m. Eastern. If you are not happy with your submission, or you weren't able to get a full submission in, please be sure to opt out. That means that your data will not go to analysis and you will not receive a star rating. We have our user group call today. I'm going to go through the adult cardiac stuff, and then we'll touch on these last three things for TVT after the end of the timeline. March 3rd, we have our monthly webinar for adult cardiac. March 17th is our user group call. And then we have Harvest 2 closing on May 28th. Be sure to put this on your calendars and start submitting early and often. We had a large influx of sites submitting within the last couple of days of close. Many issues were coming up for these sites. It was really difficult to provide everybody the attention that they needed, and caused a lot of unnecessary stress for sites. If there's ever any type of natural disaster like what's happening in Texas, I hope that our friends in Texas are doing okay. But if there's anything ever like that, or hurricanes, on the, in the Gulf area, or whatever types of things we see, and you wait until the last day or last 2 days to submit your data, it's not guaranteed that we'll always be able to, we'll work with sites to get their data in those circumstances, but it's better to be prepared and make sure you're going into the harvest close feeling confident a week or two ahead of time with what you can up into that point, to make sure your data is clean and ready to go. If you're off on a family emergency or whatever it may be, it's not fair to your coworkers to have to step in and try to clean up where you left off. So if there's something that you can do to mitigate those types of issues ahead of time, please do so. We tried to be compassionate and helpful to sites, but sometimes there's just nothing additional that we can do, especially when we're faced with other deadlines. So Harvest 2 close deadline is May 28th, 11:59 p.m. Eastern. I would not wait until May 26th or May 27th to get your data in. Start submitting now in small chunks, and you can clean it up as you go, and do a final run maybe 2 weeks or a week before the harvest date closes, just to make sure everything's in and good to go. The public reporting for adult cardiac, we will do a refresh in the spring, most likely using Harvest 1 2020 data, which would be cases that end OR dates 12/31/2019. The consenting period for public reporting has not been published yet. This is for adult cardiac. It is scheduled to be posted soon, so I'll keep you updated with that information. And then just a quick note on TVT. Sites who participate in the TVT registry will have noticed that they received star ratings on a TAVR composite with their last report. We will start doing public reporting for that TAVR composite, including volumes using the calendar year data ending December 31st, 2020. And the consenting for that, this is the first time that there will be consenting, and it'll sort of be the same process, except it'll be run through NCDR. This consenting will begin on March 1st, and it'll be open until April 30th. We have a webinar planned that's in the early stages of planning, and we'll be posting more information out for sites, but this will be a TVT type of webinar update, registry updates we'll talk about public reporting, COVID, and TVT lean data set in the mitral NCD. So for those, just giving you a heads up, mark it on your calendar to make sure that you can join this and get the information you need on the TVT side of things. Okay. And oh, my mouse is hyperactive today. Sorry, everybody. Let me go back here. STS updates. The February training manual was posted. Harvest for 2020, that data, that harvest closed on December 9th, and it went to DCRI for analysis, waiting for that to come back. Harvest 1 2021 closed this past Friday. Again, opt-out is today by 11:59 p.m. Eastern time. IQVIA is planning to send that data set over to DCRI for analysis by the end of the week. Public reporting expected to be updated in March, and consenting deadlines coming soon. And I'm going to hand it over to Joe for the IQVIA updates.
Great, thanks so much. Good afternoon, everyone. I do have quite a few things to go over for today, starting with some items that were released over this past weekend on February 13th. Starting with STS 5522 in regard to the uploader and the data quality report, we did make some updates to validations across the board, upgrading certain validations from standard error to critical error severity. These validations, they are intended to provide to prevent inconsistent or illogical data from entering the database. So things like an OR entry date that's after the OR exit, or a mortality date prior to date of surgery, things like that. So now that these things are critical errors, those records will no longer be accepted into the database when you upload. So you will need to correct those in your vendor system before resubmitting them and getting a new file over to us. So if you want a full list of those types of errors, that receive these validation updates to critical errors, you can find that in your library. There is a link there for ACSD Validation Critical Errors List 02/13/2021. So click that, and it opens up a spreadsheet that will give you a full listing of all the errors that will now be considered critical. All right, next we have STS 5700 in regard to the risk-adjusted benchmark report. So we did identify some calculations that have been updated as of this past weekend, and there is a list on your screen there of the calculations that have been updated. Number of distal anastomoses, conduit site infection, renal failure, new onset atrial fibrillation, discharge location, discharge medications, and cardiac rehabilitation referral. So updates for the specifics are on your screen there regarding specifically what was updated for the denominator inclusion for those. So feel free to take a look there.
Joe, it's also posted in the notifications, also for reference, just a heads up.
Thank you. I appreciate that. And that does say that at the top of the slide, and I just glanced over it. Yes, so feel free to check there for specifics as well.
Very good. I'm going to the next slide. This is is it good to go? Because this is an important slide, I think, for folks that were having questions on their benchmarked reports. These updates are coming. So.
Yep, and if you miss anything or you want to go back, that like Melanie said, it is in your notifications. You can get that list anytime you need it. Moving forward, other updates that made to the risk-adjusted benchmark over the weekend, FCS 5708, the any infections line of the report was displaying blank entries, so that should now be resolved. And SCS 5721, we were seeing that the results for the STS aggregate data for the preoperative beta blockers appeared lower than previously reported. So we made some updates to the logic to bring those results back in line with what we're expecting. All right, next slide. So these items are targeted for the next release, which should occur on February 27th, starting with adjustments to the MIPS performance measure report, STS 5696. The MIPS report will properly exclude transcatheter and canceled cases from the report denominator criteria. And STS 5814, we are updating the exclusion criteria for the tobacco use measures for patients identified as non-smokers who expired in the hospital. Updates to the non-analyzed dashboard, STS 5829. The Non-analyzed dashboard is incorrectly assigning some cases for isolated MVR in the none category. And so we are going to make some corrections to that logic. STS 4942, there is an enhancement coming for the non-analyzed dashboard to exclude transcatheter valve procedures before the PROC ID assignment is applied. And then STS 4262, this is an important one that I think a lot of people are looking forward to. We are making an update to the dashboard regarding how it reports your operative mortality information. The way it works now is based solely on the data specifications. So the MT-OPD, the operative mortality variable, is only calculated when for records where the status at hospital discharge is either discharged alive, died after discharge, or discharged to hospice. And so what that means is records where the discharge status was died in hospital are not included in the operative mortality totals at this time. And so what we're doing is clarifying the report so that the existing display is clearly specifically oriented around the operative mortality variable definition. And then we're adding a second line to the report that will show you the operative mortality plus died in hospital readout. So you'll have both of those things, specifically the variable and then the variable plus those who were status at discharge was died in hospital.
That's really, really important for STS 4262. So, and I think sites will be very happy with that when you add it, when we get that added in this weekend or next weekend.
End of the month, 27th. So next weekend?
Next weekend. Okay. Yeah, sites will be really happy with this operative mortality, the additional line item added in that includes those that discharge that were true mortap deaths that were discharged alive but died within 30 days, or those that were discharged to hospice, and then the inpatient mortalities and OR mortalities being seen on one line. That will be very helpful. So thank you for getting that added in. Okay. I'm just re-highlighting what you said because it's so important.
I believe it, given the number of questions we get. All right, and then one last note here. There was one more bug there, SCS 5701. There is an update coming for the risk score match report. There were some specific scenarios reported to us by some vendors for specific records where the calculations weren't matching ours. And so we are making some updates to align those with those vendors. And that's it.
Wonderful. Thank you, Joe.
My pleasure.
And the good old IQVIA support plan that seems to have evolved along with the maturation of the database acquisition. I'm getting all fancy, but you know what I mean. The IQVIA support plan, our same old support plan, reach out to IQVIA, either the phone number or STS tech support at IQVIA.com. And it goes from there. And I just want to highlight something in addition before we get to the questions is the California the regional groups, the adult cardiac regional groups. And for those of you who maybe are not aware or are newer to the database and haven't heard of this yet, the regional groups are either state-centric or region-centric, and they are groups of data managers that come together to discuss non-clinical issues, kind of help each other along the way, and just a great way to network with your peers. So if you're looking to get involved or you have questions about it, these are the list, and I'll leave this up for a little bit. These are the lists of the different regional groups that we have. Some of them are very active. We have regional calls, I think, quarterly with STS, and we go through each region and hear what's going on, different updates and meetings that they're having, or virtual meetings that they're having. Our newest regional group is the Florida regional group. Pat Hobbs has been trying to get this going for the last couple years, and because of everything in 2020, he's had a hard time with it. So if you are looking for to get involved, if you're in Florida, reach out to Pat. Her email address is here. And all the other email addresses for folks if you're looking for something within your region or state. This is also available on the STS website, and I will show you where to get that. Regional groups are great for networking and just getting to know folks and feeling like you're not a lone soul out there trying to swim in a very scary sea. So I'll reach out to these folks, and they're all very wonderful people. I'm very helpful and love their job doing their data abstraction. I'm quite passionate about doing a good job at it. So they're good friends to have. And then resources, the STS National Database webpage, STS Tech Support at IQVIA.com, and in our feedback form. And we will go to Q&A. First, I want to show you where that regional stuff is at. Oh, sorry, I didn't have it in full screen. Let's get this guy out of here. Okay. All right, under STS, under the registries and research, sts.org, registries, STS National Database. On this page, if you just scroll down a little bit, you get to all these other important resources, and you'll see regional database activities listed here. And that's where you'll find the regional contact sheet and the status charts and the different regions that we have. Here are all of our friends, and you can always find Melinda at AQO because she has a hat on, because that's STS required for her. It's STS issued. So she'll have that on if you need to find her. And then the regional group's contact is here with links to their email addresses and phone numbers. There's additional people in each group, but I thought it would be nice just to have it on one slide there. So I'm going to go over to the Q&A now because it's looking like it's happened. Let's see. So first question is from Amy, and she says, can you clarify if COVID patients are excluded from the GIST analyzed report, risk adjusted and composite, and not the benchmark reports? Thank you. So they are to be excluded from both, and IQVIA, I believe you all are excluding them from the other reports in the benchmark section that are calculated on the IQVIA side, correct? Friends?
Sorry, I was on mute. It's Melanie. So it is, the COVID patients will be excluded in the analysis on the DCRI side. And they're sending that data set back over to us. So we would just apply the same rules in regards to excluding them in our calculations.
Great, thank you. Yes, so any COVID patient, regardless of when the patient was coded positive for COVID, if it was prior to surgery, during the hospitalization for OR, or after the hospitalization, but within 30 days of the procedure, all of those patients are excluded from the analysis. If you submit often, do you just run a new file each time, which includes the ones you have already submitted? So some sites do it differently. If it was me doing it and I wanted to submit, say 2 weeks at a time, say I clean up my data, 2 weeks, or even on a Friday afternoon, and I just want to submit what I already did for the week, I would just probably submit from the very first time frame that I had a case that week to the last date on Friday, or last surgery on Friday. I would just submit that file to IQVIA. Each Friday, I would probably do that just to make sure I'm all caught up. I have all my 30-day statuses updated for the cases that occurred, 30 days ago, and make sure I had all my readmit stuff done for whatever cases were falling within that week time frame, in addition to entering the new cases. And then when I got closer to the harvest close date, I would probably take, say 2 weeks ahead of time, because I should be out of the 30-day window, hopefully, or close to it. I would just submit a larger file just to make sure I have everything covered, and you shouldn't have any additional issues. That's my personal preference if I were to be submitting data like that. You don't have to submit a whole file each time. It can just be a chunk of time that you want to submit, and it doesn't have to have overlap unless you made changes in files that were previously submitted. Can we have observed mortality, both in hospital and operative mortality, with like group and STS average in the benchmark report? So it's already provided in, because I just had to pull this out I had to pull it out for one of the reports that the surgeons wanted, and I found this in the I think it's the risk adjusted. I want to pull it up and I can show you where it's at. Hold on, unless you already have it up, Melanie, but I think I can get it. Just give me a second. Let's see if I can get to the right email here. So on operational reports, and it might take a second to load. It was under the risk adjusted dashboard. And we'll select that guy. Hopefully it doesn't take too long to open up. I'll go to the next question while that pulls up. It says, is there a time frame for COVID positive data entry? So at this time, there is not a time frame for COVID positive data entry. It just has to meet the requirements that are provided by the question. So prior to surgery, during initial during hospitalization, or discharged, but within 30 days of the procedure, just has to meet those timeframes. Right now, we're not excluding cases if they had tested positive for COVID back at the beginning of 2020, and then came in later on for a procedure a couple months later. We're not excluding those patients. So we're not excluding those patients from being captured as a yes. You would still capture that patient as having COVID prior to the procedure, and they would still be excluded from analysis. Okay, so Amy, back to your question. This is the, whoopsie. Under the risk adjusted outcomes, this little home button, I don't know if you all have found that home button yet, but it's pretty amazing. In hospital and operative mortality, your risk adjusted rates with the light group and the STS. I hope that's what you're looking for, Amy. If it's not, let me know and I can see it. You can ask Melanie to find something else that if it's not there. What are the actual steps if you want to opt out of a harvest? So on the IQVIA platform, once you log in, you go back here to your tab underneath the library, under resources, the library, you'll see the opt-out form is located somewhere here. I promise it is right here, down at the second one from the bottom. So the STS harvest output request form, this will take you back to, I think, a web form on the STS website. You fill that out and then it gets submitted to me and folks at DCRA and IQVIA. Good afternoon. We've identified an internal memory error on September's 2019 case. We made a correction in our vendor tool. Is there a way to have the data resubmitted and our harvest for 2-3 star rating changed? So no, we can't, we don't go back and update star ratings for updated data. So once whatever data is in the warehouse at the time of the harvest close is what the analysis is performed in and what the star ratings are calculated on. So, and unfortunately, it's out of the time frame now. So we're looking at only 2020 data for harvest 1. But if we do a 3-year composite with harvest 3, if we go to a 3-year composite for the cabbage for harvest 3, that would include this case that you performed in September. So it would, harvest 3 includes data through OR dates of June 30th. And for this year, it would be 2021. And when we switch over to a 3-year cabbage, it would include cases from, I think it's July 1st, 2018 through June 30th, 2021. Anybody correct me if I'm wrong on the dates, but I think that's what the 3 years is. So it would reflect in those star ratings, but you cannot go back and update previous reports and expect it to change star ratings that were already calculated. IQVIA, this one's for you, I think. Are eligible patients going to be added to the reports?
Hi, this is Melanie. Eligible patients added to which reports? Can we be a little bit more specific. I just want to make sure that, is it the risk adjusted benchmark?
Yeah.
I think she talking about, I'm just looking down on the questions. She says, talking about eligible cases for discharge meds.
Oh. So it's that line that says eligible cases.
We'll take a look at that, but eligible cases for discharge meds.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, let me
I
do a
think it just
double check.
excludes I think the eligible cases excludes the patients with the contraindications checked for discharge meds. We can take it back and talk
Yeah,
about it on
let's
our
talk about
evaluation
that.
call.
Yeah, just to make sure, because I know that we have different rules that apply to different sections within each of those
Yeah.
areas.
Is STS going to add back in the ICU length of stay greater than 24-hour data on the reports, or is this being retired? We'll have to review this one, Tabitha, and see if we get a lot of requests. I think we can add it back in, but if you could just fill out or send IQVIA support an email so we can get it on the list, or Melanie, if you're able to take it, or somebody on your team able to take it and put it down, because I think that's an important one for sites, some of the quality that they're doing at their sites.
All right, grabbing it now.
Yeah, not that it's up to me, but I think it's good to talk about. Will Diden Hospital include Diden OR? Currently, it does not. So Diden Hospital is its own, its own variable on the form. So IQVIA is reporting out Diden Hospital as the variable is reported. So anytime you check, yes, Diden Hospital, that's what it's reporting at. It's not looking at the OR, Diden the OR, to come up with a combined count. What Joe is saying is that when this, where'd it go, Joe? When they put that release out for the 4262, that it will include those Diden OR as well. Maybe, Beth, are you asking, will there be another line variable that is just your in-hospital deaths, that includes your in-hospital and Diden OR? I'm not sure, but what Joe's doing is going to be pretty cool too. So. Yes, mortality also include Diden OR. Yes, that's correct. Two-part. Okay. Patients within same hospitalization have an Impella implanted. Oh, Melinda, I think this one I'm going to hand off to you. To patients with same hospitalization have Impella implanted, then return to the OR for cabbage. Is this considered an isolated cab? Oh, I can take this one. Would this case be excluded from the star ratings category? So let's go over to the PROC ID chart. And we're going to walk through this one through. Okay. So we're going to say it started off as an isolated cab, which is PROC ID 1. We're going to say it was planned, and we're going to say that all of these were either no or something that kept it within the isolated PROC ID category. And we're going to get down to where we capture Impellas, which are, I know they're not going to be listed on here, but it's where we would look for it to see if it was listed on here. And I'll give you 2 spots to check. So Impellas are considered, hold on, I'll show you.
Temporary assist devices.
Yeah, I just want to show on the form. Sorry for the scrolling, everybody. It's different than a VAD. Impellas are captured as temporary assist devices here under L, and then we capture the Impellas under cath-based assist, which is 3786. If this was taken into consideration when determining the PROC ID, if it stayed in or out of the isolated cabbage category, we would be looking for this temporary assist device used. So I know that it's not here, but I'll show you. On the left-hand side, you'll see the field that go into determining the PROC ID. We go from tricuspid to VAD explant, VAD timing, other cardiac procedures, aorta procedures, endovascular, other cardiac AFib lesion locations, so MAGE procedures, other cardiac ASD repairs, ACD, laser ablations, pulmonary, I think that's thrombolectomy. And it goes down here, trauma, other cardiac procedures, and then tricuspid. I want to say that's transcatheter, but I'm not sure there, whatever that one is. I'd have to look it up. Other cardiac carotid endarterectomies, and etc. So I don't see on this list on the left-hand side, I don't see that we even address this field, cath-based assist devices 3786. So to me, that means if I were looking at this, it means that doesn't matter what I check here, yes or no, it's still going to stay in the isolated CABG category. And then you're thinking to yourself, well, that's crazy because this, this patient is so much sicker and it should be, something should be happening. We should be doing something with this information. So you're right, we should be. I'm going to go over here and I'll show you where else to check. The friend or the cousin of the PROC ID chart is the risk model variable chart. So if something is not on the risk ID, PROC ID chart, and you think to yourself, this has a really high impact, or this identifies to me that the patient's very sick, then I suggest looking over here into the risk model variable chart. The risk model variable chart are all the variables that are used in increasing or calculating the risk of the patient going into surgery. So we have, this is CABG, this is for the isolated CABG PROC ID. All of these variables listed here are looked at when the risk is calculated on that patient, which shows the way the risk modeling works is that we look at the analysis at DCRI looks at all of these variables. If any of these variables are checked, it impacts the expected outcome of that patient. So we could have a normal guy who doesn't have anything wrong with him. He goes to surgery and he does fine. We could have another very sick patient who goes to surgery who has a lot of these things wrong with him and he does bad. That bad outcome is probably expected because of all of the risks that he entered the OR with, which is what the risk models look at. So if I'm going to go into looking at the temporary assist devices, you can see it's broken up into each section. And I'm going to get down here, mechanical assist devices. And I can see here, oh my gosh, yeah, we do talk about cath assist devices and we talk about when. So that's that field 3760, which is what's actually this cath-based assist 13789. So the number isn't, I have to update the numbers, but it's cath-based assist when, which is this cath-based assist when. So and it's also identified on this DCF with the double asterisks. So this would not exclude it. A temporary assist device like an Impella does not exclude it from being analyzed, does not exclude the case from PROC ID or isolated CABG category. We actually look at it to assess the risk of the patient. So if they did have this, we're going to see when was it inserted, and pre-op is what has the higher risk for this patient. I know that just because it's what's in the literature that they made the models on. So temporary assist device used, when was it inserted? We look at that, and that's actually one of the risk factors. So it's not used to determine if the case stays in isolated CAB or not, but it's determined to use to the risk of that patient. Long story short, sorry, but that stuff can be confusing, and I like to talk about it to try to help. So no, the patient would not be excluded from the star ratings. It would stay in the isolated CABG category. Cindy says risk score match on the DQR listed 100% match, but when sorting for mismatches, I found mismatches in STS standard categories. Is that what you are referring to regarding risk score match? Will that affect the star ratings? IQVIA.
Yeah, it's Melanie. So, Cindy, I'm thinking you're referring to what Joe raised in regards to the risk score match report. That is the item that we're currently working with vendors on some cases that have been identified as mismatches. So that's going to go in on the 27th, and it does not affect your star ratings. So please know that again, the report is providing just information in regards to a potential for mismatches. In those instances, we did identify some instances where the vendor was sending over information where it was truly a mismatch. And so they worked on their end, and we also identified an item that we have to resolve also. So again, that's going out on the 27th.
Thank you. Okay, this is from Deb. Also, what about missing initial vent information in some of the procedure category? I think she meant benchmark detail. I'm not sure if we know about this one. Deb, if you want to, Melanie, do you know about this, or would it be best for Deb to submit a ticket to IQVIA?
If she can, I think I don't want to assume or guess. If
Yep,
she
we
can
do.
just go ahead.
We know about that one, Melanie. Yep.
That one is an item that was raised. Is that targeted for this upcoming on the 27th?
Correct.
Okay. All right. So there we go. This is an item that we will be getting addressed on the 27th.
That's why we have teams. Everybody knows something.
Everyone knows something.
Thanks, Rhonda.
Yes,
So
thank you.
This is an area that will be addressed. Very good. Okay. You said that the DC medication issue was addressed for the Harvest 2-3 risk adjusted dashboard report. Based on that, will you resend the updated star ratings? Thank you. I don't think we had an issue with the calculations at DCRI for the star ratings. I think it's a display thing for IQVIA.
Exactly. It's the calculation that was done within the benchmark section, and this was not the information that was calculated by DCRI. So that correction has been done. So DCRI is not resending any information or data set for that harvest.
Yeah, this did not impact your star ratings. This is
No,
just
it did not.
Okay, thank you. Procedure ID table. I thought I heard last month that there was a webinar that reviews this table and how to read it. I cannot find a webinar. Maybe I heard wrong. Yes, it was the April 1st webinar. So if we go to the registries page, and Leah, maybe could you put it? Oh, I guess I could do it. STS National Database, and I scroll down to view live webinars. Past ACSD webinars. It was the April 1st one, so we don't keep all of them posted up here, but you can find a whole catalog of webinars that we've done since October of 2019. And when you hit that link, it'll bring you over to the STS YouTube page. And Leanne's going to post it in the chat box for you. Just scroll down, and it's this April 1st webinar here that you'll be able to find the PROC ID chart explanation. Okay, how would I give
Carol?
our heart and vascular? Yes.
Sorry, before I just wanted to share the question that we had earlier in regards to the among eligible cases being able to display the information for the discharge medications. That
Yes,
is
ma'am.
showing up in the report currently. So I could show where that is if they are not seeing that. I have a test environment that I'm able to show where that's located.
Oh, I think, is it going to be in my thing here?
Let
Let's
me
see.
If you have it up still, then I can tell you.
Yeah. I'm getting quick at the IQVIA dashboard. I didn't think I'd learn where all this stuff was at, but it's been a year of progress.
Been in and out. Yeah, in and out.
And I see Leanne posted the link to the STS webinar page. Thanks, Leanne. So you'll just have to look at view all webinars for the ACSD.
Okay, so if you choose the isolated cabbage under benchmark reports, I just want to make sure. And then discharge, yep, information.
I've been here. I've done this a couple times.
Yeah, and if you scroll down, I just want to make
Oh,
sure,
there it is.
is that, yeah, the among eligible
Yep.
cases? Okay, and you're in a
Yep,
test, you're
that's
in the
good.
999, so you're not going to see
No, this is not the test environment. This is the
Yeah.
production environment.
production, but you're not going to see, since you're in the, I believe.
Yeah, I
it's
won't see
999.
data.
Right,
I'll only see the
That's where you would
STS and
see.
the like groups.
right.
Yeah. But for your site, you should see data within these boxes. Okay. Thanks, Melanie, for checking that out so quickly. Okay, next question's from Rita. How would I give our Heart and Vascular Center director access to the IQVIA? To IQVIA, in addition to myself as data manager and our clinical abstractor as backup. So Jane, Leanne, if you could please put the link into the email address for the STSDB at sts.org. If you'd like to email out to Jane at that email address, she'll be able, or to Addie Dolan, they'll be able to help you get access for other folks at your center. Nancy Honeycutt, she says she's logged in a few minutes late. Could we go back to the slides? I'll leave this one up for a little bit for you, and then we'll go to the other ones. It was very helpful to receive the last webinar Q&A section in writing. Could you send it for this webinar also? So I only did that for the questions that we did not get to. So if we don't get to all the questions, I'll try to do it, but we might be able to get through all of them. They are recorded, so you can go back and listen to them. And that took quite a bit of time, but I knew Harvest one was important to everybody, so I wanted to provide that to folks. When listening to the IQVIA updates, in addition to the STS reference number, could you also include the name or description of the data point as well? Sure. I think Joe, tries to do that in his areas here. This is not an exclusive, an exhaustive list. There's additional updates coming. And he tries to refer to the section.
I can take that note and make sure that I'm mindful that I am doing that.
Okay, thanks, Joe.
Sure.
Hey, Carol, I think maybe they're referencing the sequence number, maybe.
The short name probably would be helpful. Yeah, I agree. Short name and or sequence number probably would be helpful. Good point, Melinda. Is it possible to add the ICU length of stay to the report with benchmarks? Yeah, I think we can talk about that in one of our upcoming elaboration calls. I want to see what we have at length of stay. If it's just well, we have the post-procedure length of stay, so maybe you're looking for the ICU length of stay. I want to see what we have under the post-op information, what's provided there. So we have the ICU stay, total ICU hours and the initial ICU hours. So is there something different that you're looking for? Let me know. Is anything in IQVIA showing the COVID coded patients? Not yet, but I think that's on one of our elaboration discussions. Is that correct, Melanie?
That's correct. We do have that on a list for us to review and eventually have it available for you all.
Great, thank you. Oh, Amy's looking for the observed and not risk adjusted mortality. So I don't know if we have the observed mortality. I think I was looking for that too. Let's see here.
That's on the list for an upcoming.
Oh, good. Okay, yeah, that would be really helpful for sites to have that. That's great. Thanks, Rhonda. For IQVIA, please consider adding the variable reason for no IMA in the non-analyzed ACS dashboard. Oh, she already have a ticket. Thank you, Glaze. Pass that on. Can we add non-risk adjusted in-hospital? So in the benchmark report, so we can have, yeah, so that's what Rhonda just said. We are looking at adding that in. Is there a set date when we are going to a rolling 3-year data submission for isolated cabbage? My understanding is that it will be harvest 3. We're working on harvest 3 of 2021. We are working on finalizing timelines within the quality metrics task force and education and a whole rollout type thing. So the word is harvest 3, and we'll let the sites know as we get closer. Did I hear you? Yes. Did I hear you say that cabbage will change to a 3-year time frame? Does this include star ratings? Also, yeah. So it will include. It will be a 3-year time frame, 36 months for the cabbage ratings. Where can you find more training regarding the dashboard? So we've done quite a bit on the webinar. So you may want to take a look at all the previous webinars, which is quite a bit, but also. Back under registries, STS National Database, we have the IQVIA Gold Live checklist and the data. I think the database transition resources is where you're going to find ACS dashboard overview and uploader instructions. So those are good places to start. And then if just exploring around, I learned it best by just clicking on different things, finding out what different buttons do. Realizing that I don't have to click over here each time I want to switch a report. I can, click the home button to get back to where I want to go. I guess to switch reports, I have to go back over there, but to get to the beginning of the report I'm in, I can just hit that little home button. So really just playing around with it and looking at what you have, I think is like any software, it's the best way to get used to it and not be nervous that you won't break anything. So just go explore. I submitted our harvest data prior to the deadline with the only error of missing tin. I was able to obtain our tin to add to our cases for 2020. I resubmitted those cases to IQVIA this week in order to update the same cases that I submitted prior to the harvest deadline. This time I received a critical error stating that the time between discharge date and OR exit date is initial ICU hours. Yeah, I saw that another site reported that one too, and I did send it over.
Yep.
I did send it over to IQVIA.
And it's Melanie. Yes, we're looking at that and we're looking to see why that is firing. So that is an item that we're trying to validate. But I did get that this morning. So the team is looking at that. So once we have further information, we'll post a notification related to that, whether or not if we can get that updated with a patch, but we'll make sure communication is out there so you all are aware.
Wonderful, thank
If you
you.
do encounter that, not everyone is encountering that specific critical error.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, and I noticed it's happening on those patients that were discharged directly from ICU. For those that are having the issue, it was on those that were discharged directly from ICU. When will the report be final? Every time we go back into IQVIA, the numbers percentages have changed for the reports. So the non-analyzed dashboard's always going to change, which with each submission you submit and with each other submissions, the STS numbers will always change. The ACSD risk adjusted dashboard, this report should not change. If it does, we should, if there's any kind of update from that from DCRI, if there's an analytic issue, then we would inform sites that the data had been updated, but that had happened before with our national reports, that we had to do that previously. But for purposes of IQVIA and this risk adjusted benchmarked dashboard, these data should not change. It's pretty static unless there's a calculation that's being updated that Joe talks about in his slides. So and the dashboards are kind of evolving as we go along and finalize a few things. So hopefully we don't have many more of those issues with the benchmark report where things are not being excluded in the denominators. But we're catching them, and your feedback is very helpful in identifying those issues. That's why we provide, the updates on the webinars for that. Nicole asked, will major surgery procedures mortality be reported or will this be retired? I'm not sure which one that is, Nicole. So if you're saying that we're reporting out the major surgery. I'm not sure what that one is. If you could just clarify what you're looking for there. What impact does opting out have? What does it mean to opt out? If you opt out once for a given period, what reports will be affected and for how long? Maybe you already covered this. It's okay. So opt out means that it affects the current harvest close. So if you opt out today, you would be opting out for harvest 1 of 2021. Your data would not go into analysis and you would not receive a star rating. And I can't remember where we landed on what happens with the other benchmarked data. I'm assuming that the site's total data does not get sent over to DCRI, so you're not getting anything back. But Melanie, maybe you can, do you have anything to add to that?
That they actually would see results that would come back in the benchmark sections of the report.
Okay.
So it's not totally blank.
So they would see all of this stuff, all of this benchmarked stuff.
Mhm.
For harvest, and the only things they wouldn't receive are the quality ratings, quality rating details, and the NQF reporting, correct?
And also the
And the
risk
risk-
adjusted out.
And the risk
Exactly.
adjusted.
Mhm.
Okay. So you would still receive the benchmark report, which is not risk adjusted data. You would not receive risk adjusted outcomes, and you would not receive your quality ratings or your NQF reporting. It's just for that current harvest. So if you wanted to opt out again, you would have to do it for the next harvest. I was unable to find the percent of, the intra and post-op blood usage in the report. I know that was another one that they were working on as well. Any updates on that one?
I want to say that, and I'll double check, that also is included in the upcoming release. Let me just do a quick.
Oh, here it is. Total blood products used intra post-op.
I think they may
Must
have
have
added that already. Yep.
Yeah, must have got it already. That was one that was missing, but it's there now.
It was.
Yeah. So that's under the post-operative information section. So you have under the post-operative information section, you have your blood products used. This is related just to post-op. You have your total blood products used, which is a combination of your intra and your post-op. And if you go over to hit your little benchmarked button and you go over to your operative information, it takes a second, but it's there. You'll have your blood products used, and this is intra-op. So they're all three are there for you. Does the non-analyzed dashboard give us data results for the files we submitted recently or data that you guys have analyzed that was included in public reporting? The non-analyzed dashboard is your own site's data that has not been analyzed. The benchmarked reports are, so the missing variable, harvest summary, participant dashboard, these are non-analyzed data results. Once the data goes over to DCRI and we get the star ratings back and we get to have the benchmark reports calculated, then we have the risk adjusted dashboard is populated with those data. That's what's used for public reporting. Where do you get benchmark reports? So underneath the risk adjusted dashboard is where you'll find that. For IQVIA, can we please get a data download report similar to the CAD registry? This would help us troubleshoot some of the field relationships as inclusions, exclusions, criteria. Think of the eligibility question earlier in this Q&A. For many of the performance measures we look at, it looks like the dashboards are going to take a while to mature, and this would be a good, I like the word mature. Jared, I'm going to use that. It looks like the dashboards are going to take a while to mature, and this would be a good stopgap as we quality check the data and speed up fallout evaluations.
I guess I would like clarity in regards to with the troubleshooting. Is it that you're not using the MVR, that wouldn't in regards to when you're troubleshooting the fields to determine certain things. I guess I'm trying to understand the troubleshooting aspect of what the need is, just to see if do we have anything that's available for you. But the data download report, if you are a direct data entry user, that is available for our direct data entry sites. We would have to bring this back to STS for them to make a decision on whether or not that's an additional report that they would like to consider.
Yeah, I think that's a good point, and we can talk about it. I think it's available in their vendor software, but I think what he's saying is it would also be helpful to be available here. But good point. And Jared, if you want to email me with more information, I'll be happy to pass it along. Maybe Leanne, if she's listening, can put my email on the thing. Can you provide more detail on the lean data set for TVT? Is this version 3? So it will be a version 3. There's going to be a full and a lean data set, and it will be distributed to vendors, but they're still working on that, Carmen. And our operations team is still working on that for TVT. Back on the risk score sheet, I should say though, it's not different variables. It will just be a subset of the variables that are on the full case form. Back on the risk score sheet, I'm creating a report through my vendor, and a few other of the sequence numbers aren't pulling up any matching fields. I'm reaching out to the vendor, but wanted to make sure these numbers are correct under the hemodynamics and cath section. I don't know what that means. Melanie?
Sorry, I was reading. I'm not sure.
Yeah, can you repeat that question? I'm so sorry.
That's okay. It says back on the risk score sheet, I'm creating a report through my vendor, and a few of the sequence numbers aren't pulling up any matching fields. I'm reaching out to my vendor, but wanted to make sure these numbers are correct under the hemodynamics and cath section.
But I think
Looks
she's
like
talking about that sheet that you pulled up earlier that had the sequence. I think you were even saying that some of those sequence numbers are not, they need to be updated. It was on the
that's on the
website.
PRAC ID. Yeah, that's on the PRAC
Yeah,
ID sheet though.
the
But
other sheet, not this one.
Yeah.
There was another one with
I would-
X's.
Kelly, I wouldn't use the risk model variable sheet. I wouldn't use the sequence numbers when trying to do this. I would use the short names. The short names never change between versions. The sequence numbers almost always change between versions. So if you're looking at data across versions, you're much better off using the short names. Those are things like OCAR ACD versus the sequence number 4055, because as you saw in this, I don't know where the heck it went, but one of these, like the cath-based assist, the sequence numbers, the old sequence number needs to be updated. I think all of these are old, but the PRAC ID, this short name never changes. So I would suggest using just the short name. It has to be typed in exactly as it's provided. I would use that instead. They are correct in the training manual and in the data specs and on the DCF. What's the rationale for entering patients into the database if they are COVID positive, if the data won't be included in the site's analysis? Because we will be reporting out that data separately, and we are looking at that internally for research through the STS. Is there a way to print out the entire benchmarked report for each op category instead of printing each individual section?
If she's referring to, hi Linda, if you're referring to the non-analyzed report, we are looking to enhance that report to allow you to be able to print the entire report. If you're referring to within the risk adjusted report, I believe there is an option to do an export, but it's the entire report, which includes the benchmark section. I think we did have another enhancement request to do this, so we are looking at enhancing it, but just wanted to give that background. If hopefully I'm talking about the sections that you are referring to.
Thank you. Okay, it looks like we're at time, so probably going to call it a day. Thanks, Melanie, for all your help, and for everybody else, Joe and Rhonda and Jean and Melinda and Leanne. Thanks, everybody. I'll try to see what the rest of these questions are, and if there's anything, if I'm able to get to them, I'll fill them out and send them out. It doesn't look like too many, so let me see how the day unfolds, and if I can do it, I will.
Okay.
Otherwise, when's our next webinar? It is on March 3rd, and it will be at 2 p.m. Central Time, so we'll see you there. If you have any ideas for education, please let me know. Send me an email. My email's in the chat box, and I will try to educate on it. All right, thanks, everybody. I hope you have a great day. Thank you, IQVIA and STS teams. Talk to you later.
Great call, everyone.
Thanks. Bye, guys.